Hello everybody, welcome to another video, and this is going to be a very special video because today I will start a new series of episodes, and this is going to be a whole series about interviews with my black belt. So just for you to understand the concept of it, the black belt would be a student, a candidate that has achieved the CLB 10 in IELTS. That means to get a score of 7.5 or above in the speaking test of the IELTS. And to start this episode, to start this season, I've got today the pleasure to talk to Anna. Anna was my first black belt, and we are going to have a bit of a chat about how she managed and how she prepared herself to get to that level, right? So first of all, Anna, thank you so much for accepting this invitation. I thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this. I have to say that I miss your classes, but I'm glad that I don't have to take them anymore.
That's true. That's true. And just Anna, just to quickly introduce yourself, I'm going to say, and then you can add all the information you have, that you have a profile related to Canada. Is that it?
Yeah,
And her profile is um, Vivendo in Waterloo, right?
yeah, that's it. I
Okay.
used to live in Hamilton, but then I moved to Waterloo, so I changed the name of my profile.
Uh-huh. And that's it. That's it. I'd like you to start telling us a bit about your story, how you decided to go to Canada. When did you decide to go to Canada?
Okay, so everything started when I was 15 years old. I had
Mhm.
a friend. It wasn't a friend, but it was some guy that I knew. And he came to Canada to study English. And on that time, it was possible to study English and work at the same time.
Oh.
So his mother was showing us the pictures that he sent.
Mhm.
He was studying English and working in a ski station at the same
Mhm.
time. And he was having parties. He was meeting with people from all over the world.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I got so excited about that thing that I wanted to do the same thing.
Was he living in which city?
Toronto.
Oh.
I,
Mhm.
I think I think so.
So that would be your first, the first city you were planning to go, or not?
No, actually, it was more Canada in general. All
Mhm.
the snow, all the that thing, all the pictures that she showed me that day. I don't know. I got so excited about the that experience. I just wanted to have that experience. I didn't want to live abroad or move to another country. I just wanted to have that kind of experience itself.
So at that time, or since that time, did you have this idea of going for studying or not?
I had the idea for going to study English, just
Hmm.
English, not some,
Oh.
yeah, not a graduate course or something like that,
Mhm.
just English. I went to some agencies to know more about the costs and what should I do to come here.
Mhm.
And on the same
Was
year,
so which year was that?
uh, when I first heard about the thing, I was 15
Mhm.
years old, so it
Oh.
was, oh my gosh, should I say that?
Please
I'm gonna
don't.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say I was 15. I'm not gonna give you the year. Um, I went to an agency, like I had to save some money and everything to finally start my project. And on that same year, I was told that Canada wasn't allowing anymore for students to come study English and work at the same time. I
Mhm.
could come to study English, but I had to bring all the money and I had to have the financial capacity of
Mhm.
supporting myself here.
Yes, yes.
And that was not an option for me. Like it
Mhm.
was so hard to save the money for that option, like
Mhm.
because there was always a minimum you had to bring and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a different number if I was able to work.
Mm-hmm. And did you manage to go just for that, just to study English, or you left that for later?
No, no, I left that. Um, the agency showed me some other countries like New Zealand, Ireland, but I don't know. I had that thing with Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just to go abroad and study English.
Oh, I see.
It was English in Canada. I wanted
You
Canada,
have always dreamed of
about
Canada, right?
Canada. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
some reason. I don't know the reason why I had that feeling, but for me, I just wanted Canada.
Mm-hmm. And how was that transition between going to study English and going and deciding to go for college?
So after I found out that it wouldn't be possible to
Mm-hmm.
come to do the English project. I kind of left it aside. Um, I was doing different plans for my life.
Did it take long?
Yeah, actually, I kind of left that dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like I abandoned that dream,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I gave up about coming to Canada.
Mm-hmm. No.
So I would say 3 years later, yeah, 3 years
Mm-hmm.
later, I was just living my life, working, and I was planning to get married.
Mm-hmm.
So before uh, my husband and I get married,
Mm-hmm.
we decided to go abroad. Like,
Yes, that was the thing I was going to ask you. Did your husband always wanted to go to Canada too, or that was your thing? Tell us about
uh,
that.
firstly, it was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going to the agencies, I was going by myself. Like I was dating with him. We were already dating, but he lent me his car, and I was
Mm-hmm.
going to the agencies. I remember I got home with the papers and everything related to that. But and then I asked him, you don't have that feeling like you don't feel the same, like you're
Uh-huh.
not interested to go abroad or something like that. And then he said, um, I wouldn't go just to study English because my plan was to spend like at least 6 months. So it wasn't just something that I could do during my vacation, for example.
Mm-hmm. You
So he
wanted
said,
to study there, right? You wanted
yeah,
to
I want
live there.
not leave, like I wanted to spend more time because
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, 1 month wasn't enough. I wanted to go for more time, like
Mm-hmm.
3 or at least 6 months, I remember.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he said that I wouldn't go for 6 months because I would have to leave my job. I would have
Oh.
to, like, he wouldn't be able, and I wouldn't be able to continue my
Mm-hmm.
life from the point that I stopped. So
Mm-hmm.
he said, if there was an option to go and stay there, I would do that.
Oh.
But I wouldn't do something to just go for a period of time and then come back.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his idea. But at that time, we didn't know about any program, any option to
Mm-hmm.
to to come to Canada like
But if I'm
permanently.
not permanently, but if I'm not mistaken, you told me once that then you decided to go to study, right? To do a college, right?
Yeah, that was so just a period of time. We decided to go abroad
Mm-hmm.
in a way that as we're not going anywhere, as we're gonna get married and stay here, let's at least
Mm-hmm.
have some experience. So we went to Germany, and after that, our idea was just go there and come back.
Oh, Germany. So
Yeah, we just
whose idea was that?
it was his idea, but we just went there because it was a country that we didn't need any sort of visa or
Mm-hmm.
anything different than that. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to spend money. We would just need to buy the tickets and
Mm-hmm.
make our reservations, and that's
Oh.
it. We didn't need to concern about applying for a
Did you
visa,
live there
waiting.
for a long time or not?
No, we just went on vacation. Like we just spent
Oh, just on vacation.
10 days. It was
Oh,
just to know a different country, a different culture, to
and that was your first experience
my first
in
experience.
another country.
Yeah, my first international experience.
Hmm.
But we just went there like for fun, not
Hmm.
it was.
And when you returned,
And when we returned, that thing became stronger. That feeling of living abroad and you know
yes,
moving from Brazil.
living the dream, right?
Yeah,
But now the Canadian dream, right?
yeah. But then I saw some friends coming to Canada,
Hmm.
and every time I saw someone going abroad that was not just vacation, I went there. What are you doing there? How did you get there? And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was asking questions. And when I saw the third person doing that college thing and then talking
Oh.
about the options after that, like I came here to study, and after that I can apply to become a permanent
Hmm.
resident and everything.
Hmm.
Then it was when I searched more about the program
And
and
I
the
saw as
options.
an option.
Yeah.
Hmm. And when did you find out that you would need to take IELTS to go? Because I think you took IELTS for college first, right?
Yeah, yeah. So to be admitted in a college program, you have to show some level of English,
Hmm.
and you have to prove that. And one of the ways is taking the IELTS test,
Hmm.
but the academic version.
Hmm. And at that time, you were thinking, or were you thinking about preparing, or just did you speak English already?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I studied for almost 8 years in Brazil,
Hmm.
so I had some level of English.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know anything about the test,
Hmm.
but the score to enter a college is not that high. So I
Hmm.
thought it would be possible to go for the test
Hmm.
without any specific preparation for that.
I see. I see. And you took the IELTS test at that time. And how was the experience, the first experience with IELTS?
Um, yeah, I was really nervous. I have that feeling with any kind of test.
Hmm.
And it was hard, but it was, I don't know, because it was in Brazil, so
Oh,
the
it's
teachers
okay in
there,
Brazil.
yeah, the first test
Hmm.
was in Brazil. And I don't know, the people there, they speak English. They're not fluent, or, I mean, they are fluent, of course, but I mean, they are not
Not a native level.
native. Yeah, they're not native speakers.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say it was easy, but I achieved the score that I need just studying with the material that was provided on the when you subscribe for the course.
Hmm. That was going to be one of my questions for you. If you have um, looked for some IELTS prep classes at that time or not, but you just told us that you
No,
studied alone, right,
no,
by
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. I studied by myself, and I just watched some YouTube
Hmm.
or
For how long?
I would say almost 2 months.
Hmm.
But
Before.
yeah, but
Mhm.
it wasn't that regular. I started reading some things, watching some videos, and then 2 weeks before the test, it was when I really dedicated myself to,
Focused.
yeah,
Mhm.
like to spend at least 2 hours studying for that.
Mhm. At that time, which part of the test would you say was the hardest?
Um, I would say speaking.
Hmm. Hmm. At that part, because why? Why?
Yeah, because when we are studying, we try to read about other students' experience, which kind of questions
Hmm.
they were asked. Um, you know, we just read about that and we practice based on that. But the
Mhm.
truth is
When
that
you really
when you are
came to
there,
face the
yeah,
test, it was different, right?
yeah, it is different. It's not
Hmm.
something that you saw before. It was
What was it?
about teenagers. Um, like the first three questions were the regular questions about where you
Hmm.
live, what do you work or study. For that one, I was already prepared. But after
Hmm.
that, she came with a question: do you need any specific training for your job?
Hmm. Oh,
So
and
it
then
was
you were
yeah. So
surprised.
at that time, yeah, it was the third question because she just asked me if I worked or study, where, and if I needed
Hmm.
something specific for that. And at that third question,
You were not
like
expecting.
yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So
And that's quite true. That
and
is quite true because usually people say that they are going to make those questions every single time, right? But that
mhm,
is not true.
no.
And as you just told, sometimes we don't know what is going to happen, right? What
Mhm.
kinds of questions we are going to receive, right?
And then you're not expecting those questions. So when she asks, you're like, I don't know what to say, or
Hmm.
I don't know. You
Your,
have
your
you have
mind is just frozen,
yeah,
right?
and even she asked me some questions that I never thought about in Portuguese, even in Portuguese. So
Uh,
to formulate an idea about that in English,
some students report the same feeling, right? When you receive a question that you were not expecting. At the first moment, you freeze. And
mhm,
there's a quote of an author that I really like. I really like to read his books, and he's called Adam Neville. And he says in one of his books, the character was so shocked that he was trying to thaw his mind from the shock. You're like frozen, and then I need to say something, I need to say something. And if you're
mhm,
not prepared, you're going to say something wrong,
yeah, yeah,
right?
you're gonna ruin your test.
Hmm.
And I left the test. The speaking part was I think it was on a Thursday, and the rest of my test would be on a Saturday. So it was 2 days before the rest of the test, and I left the
The center.
the center feeling that I won't get the score that I need.
Oh.
I don't know if I should come on Saturday.
But then you came back, right? And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
did,
I came back again.
and you did it.
Like, yeah, I had to
Okay,
do
so
another.
then you went there and you got your results. You How was it? Was it quick from the date you got your results to the day you traveled to Canada?
Uh, I got my results in November.
Hmm.
It was 2017.
Hmm.
Yeah, 2017. I got my results in November, and well, after that, some things happened. Like my visa was refused, and so I took a little longer to come to Canada, but it was almost a year later.
Oh, and just a quick interruption here. For those of you who might be in the same situation, college, visa, and you should talk to her or at least should visit her profile because she talks about many situations like that. So she definitely can give you a hand on this, right?
Yeah, I
But
have to say that I made my process all by myself, just
oh,
studying the immigration
website.
website.
Mhm.
So um, whatever I can give some tips or some
Mhm. To share your
to
knowledge,
share,
right? To
yeah,
share,
share
because
my
it's all
experience. And
about our own experiences and
yeah,
how we deal with them, right?
yeah.
That is quite cool.
Before coming to Canada, my idea was to share more about my life, but
Mhm.
I didn't imagine how crazy all the experience would be. But I'm focusing more on those kind of things, more related to tips or something that is really different here in
Mhm.
Canada.
All right.
You're not gonna see my pictures in my profile.
Just relevant information,
Yeah.
right? Good. Good to know. Okay, so later on, when you were graduating, right, at
Hmm.
your college, you decided to take IELTS again. I mean, it's not that you decided, you needed to take
Yeah.
IELTS
Yeah.
again, right?
I
How
need
was
it.
it?
So I came here to take a 1 year course.
Hmm.
My idea was to have the 1 year of work permit that I would have after the course, just to wait for my permanent residence process. And so I decided to take the IELTS before finishing my course because I needed to know how it was after some time living in Canada, living in English, because it is different. It is totally different.
Do you think immersion itself helped you or not that much?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Of course, it helped.
Hmm.
It helped develop my English. I didn't have any other option than
Hmm.
speaking English, like in college, with my friends, at work. So I
Hmm.
had to speak in English.
Because
Uh,
I I normally get questions like that if immersion helps. Well, I tend to say that immersion helps if you are doing the things you need to do, right?
yeah,
Because by itself, if you're only there living abroad, it would not help you if you're not doing the things you need, like if you're not interacting with people and using the language,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you were doing that.
yeah. That's the part that is important. Use the language, because if
Hmm.
you come here and just stay with hanging out with Brazilians,
Hmm.
just watching TV from Brazil. We
Hmm.
did that. We did that at home. Like we were watching some YouTube videos from Brazil. We were talking at home in Portuguese, but at the same time, the most part of our lives was in
Hmm.
English.
Yes, that's it. Hmm. And go on, you could say something.
I would say that at that time, I thought, um, before coming, I thought that after 6 months, that was the time that I
Mhm.
planned to
Mhm.
to go abroad and studying English. I'm going to be fluent. They might they might not know if I'm Brazilian or Canadian.
And how was it? Tell us a bit more about
Yeah,
that.
like I thought I would. I don't know. I thought I would improve my English in a level that I would be so fluent. But that was not what happened. Of course, it improved, but not on that level. I think most of the time, what we try to do is translate from Portuguese to English, and that
Mhm.
is not right.
That's true.
So I
That's
thought,
true.
so I think immersion helps you to start thinking in English, living in English, and instead of translating everything.
Mhm. That's true. That's
And
quite true.
I feel
That's
that
quite true.
that's what happened.
Because I once watched TED Talk. I can't remember the name of the professor giving it, giving the lecture, but he said that immersion itself is not worth it because it's like a drowning man, right? A drowning man doesn't learn how to swim,
Hmm.
right? Because he's there all surrounded by water and he doesn't know how to swim. So
Yeah.
immersion itself doesn't help you if you're not doing the things you need to do in order to improve, right? That's the
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the thing.
But speaking about that second IELTS attempt, did you think at the time it would be easier?
Yeah.
Was it?
Um. Yes and no. It was easier because I had a previous experience, so I knew the structure of the test, how it's going to be, and what they expect from me. But at that time, I needed a higher score.
And that would be what most of people aim for, the CLB 9, right?
Yeah,
Which in speaking means 7. Is
seven.
that it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, to get the CLB 9, which
ELB
is
9.
mandatory that you have 8 in listening and 3 in reading, writing, and speaking, right?
Yeah, Yeah,
Mhm.
777.
777. Oh, the 777.
Triple seven. Yeah.
Mhm. And at that time, um, what are you doing? What were you doing to improve your speaking skill at that time?
Okay, so I made the mistake
Mhm.
thinking that I was already practicing. I
Mhm.
felt at that time that my English was better than when I came a lot.
Because
So,
you were using
because
it,
I was there,
right?
yeah, I was using it every day
Mhm.
for at that time for 6 months. So I felt that my English had improved,
Mhm.
but I forgot that the IELTS test is not just about English.
That's true. That's quite true.
Yeah,
It's not about English. It's
it's
about
not English.
preparing yourself for a very specific purpose. That is the
Yeah,
test,
yeah,
which is
that's the thing.
designed to be hard, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. And um, okay, how were you preparing? How were you studying? Or if you were studying, right? Because you just told that you thought you were okay to take the test again because you were using the language. How were you studying or thinking you were studying for IELTS before having the classes with me?
So to be honest, I was doing the same thing I did in
Mhm.
Brazil before taking the academic version, because for me that kind of worked.
Mhm.
I got the score that I needed.
Mhm.
So with that feeling that my English was better and I already knew the test, I'm
Okay, I
prepared.
should receive a higher
Yeah,
score. Right?
yeah,
Mhm.
I can do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So I was just again studying at home, watching YouTube videos, checking specific websites about IELTS,
Mhm.
reading the common questions that were asked on, like, the students sharing their experience,
Mhm.
practicing that. But I didn't have a feedback
Mhm.
about how I was doing that.
That's the thing. That's the thing. You didn't know, right?
Yeah, I didn't know. I was
Mhm.
just hoping that they asked me the some question that I knew how to answer.
Yes.
Like,
And unfortunately, hoping is not a strategy, right?
no, not at all, not at all.
Yes.
Um,
So, how, so you decided to take IELTS, and how was it? Go on. Before, I think you took IELTS before having classes before, right?
yeah, to be honest, before taking the test, I even came to some English teachers about IELTS to
To
ask to have
estimate
some
the price.
yeah, to
Mhm.
estimate the price or something, and I thought it was expensive.
Mhm.
And then I decided to study by myself again.
So this is
Three
quite
times.
interesting because to your mind, you were thinking that you have improved enough just with immersion, right? And
Mhm.
just because you were using the language.
Yeah.
But then you found out that you needed to prepare for the test, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with my first experience here in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
At that time, we already had the computer-based test. It was something new, but we
Patent
didn't.
in Canada.
Yeah, it was something new in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we didn't have that in my city, at least
Oh.
with
At that
the
time, you were living in
Hamilton.
Hamilton, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we didn't have that option in
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton. So I could go to Toronto to take
Mm-hmm.
the test there, but I decided to not. I decided to save that money.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to save the money of the English teacher, the transportation for Toronto to
Mm-hmm.
take the computer version,
Mm-hmm.
and I took the paper-based version in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
So on the same day, I had the speaking part.
How was it?
Um, I was lucky because on the third part, the examiner he asked me something that was about the course that I was studying.
Oh.
So it
Mhm.
was about international business, import, export.
Which was your
Yeah, which
field
was
of
my
knowledge.
yeah, but it was something that I knew what to talk about.
That was a good surprise then,
Yeah, yeah.
because that doesn't happen quite often.
I don't think so. And it was like a coincidence.
And speaking about the speaking test, which part you think or you used to think it was the worst for you? One,
Um,
two, three.
the second part. Yeah.
The second part was the worst.
Definitely.
Why?
Because at that part, you have to speak like non-stop.
You are given a task card or a cue card with a topic and some with a question and some topics for you to talk about for up to 2 minutes. That's
Yeah.
it.
So when you think about 2 minutes, 2 minutes is a short period of time.
Mhm.
But when you have to speak
When you're there
non-stop,
on the
yeah,
spot.
yeah. And I, I don't know. For me, that is the worst part of the test.
And how was it? How was that experience? The scores? Did you get the scores you needed?
On that at that time, I got a 7.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my problem was the listening part and the writing. So on my first test, I didn't get the score in listening and in writing, and
Mm-hmm.
I got in speaking. I got 7. Was the minimum score that
And
I
then
need.
I think you even thought about taking the selfie, right?
Yeah,
Tell a bit more.
yeah. Some people were saying that CELPIP was easier than IELTS.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I don't know. I felt that I already knew the structure and all the tips, all the things that I need to know about IELTS. So I didn't take CELPIP. After I got my scores and I realized that my problem was listening, was on the listening part. I decided to go to the computer version of the
Mm-hmm.
test.
I see.
So
Mm-hmm.
I actually took IELTS 2 times more before taking CELPIP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how was it with selfie?
Terrible.
Because it is a totally different test, right? If
And it,
I'm memory serves, you speak to a computer, right?
yeah, all the parts are in the computer. Even the speaking part, you don't speak with a person, you speak with the computer. It's like it's not some questions that you might have an answer, that you might have an experience about it. It's just something you have to pretend you're talking to a friend,
Mm-hmm.
pretend you're talking
Oh, I
to your
see.
boss.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pretend you're talking to people that are not there. I remember the first question was to give some advice for my friend, and then again you have like 1 minute to speak, and you
Mm-hmm.
have that thing. You read the question, you have 30 seconds to prepare, and then
Mm-hmm.
the thing says start speaking now, and then you have to start speaking as you
Mm-hmm.
were speaking with a friend.
I see.
Uh,
But in front of a computer.
in front of a computer with more people in the same room. More
Oh,
people
that is a bit different.
speaking at the same time. Yeah, yeah.
That is different.
It's
Yes, it's
different.
different.
It's different.
It's different. So passing through that situation, then I think then was the time that we started having classes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you taken um, CLB 10 before having the classes? I think
On
uh, right?
speaking,
You did it.
no,
You
no.
did
On
it.
speaking part,
Mhm.
no. Actually, what happened was on my first part, I got the 7. I got 7, the score that I
CLB
needed.
9.
On my second one, I got 7. I got even a 7.5 on writing,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
didn't get on listening again.
Mm.
Then on my third test, I got the listening. Reading, I was always getting,
Mhm.
but I didn't get on writing and speaking.
I-
So instead of being more prepared, because I took the test at
Mhm.
on that third time,
Mhm.
I had 3 experience in IELTS, like the academic
Mhm.
version and 2 general versions.
Mhm.
So my score in speaking decreased.
You kind of entered into a descent,
Yeah.
right?
And the
Mhm.
same thing happened on my speaking on CELPIP. The speaking part
Oh,
was my worst one. It
in
was
the
the
selfie.
only, yeah, it was the only
Mhm.
band that I didn't get the score that I needed in CELPIP. That was the part that I thought would be better, that would had
Mhm.
improved more because I was practicing, I was speaking with people every day,
Yeah,
friends
so
from other
before
countries.
having the classes, you had decreased your speaking score to 6.5 again, right?
6.5, yeah. I don't remember if it was 6.5 or even 6.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and then we
I can
started
check.
having the classes. I started to feed you with all those techniques and information. And then eventually, I mean, in time, after applying all those techniques, you became a black belt, right? So what did you feel when you saw your marks?
Oh my God. I feel so relieved because after seeing my score, I had that feeling I don't have to take that test never
Mhm.
again.
Mhm.
That's the definition.
Yes, I can clearly see that because what most of people are aiming for is to get the CLB9 and also the scores they need in order to not need IELTS anymore. But you not only did it, you not only managed it, but you also got CLB 10. So
Yeah,
that helped you a lot in your immigration process, wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, because it was so helpful for my score.
Mhm.
At that time, the score for the immigration process was really high. Um, I'm not sure now. I don't remember the simulations that I did. If I got the CLB 9, just the
Mhm.
9, if I would be able to get the invitation for
Mhm.
the permanent residency.
Yes, that's true. Mhm. That's kind of story, right? Your path with IELTS, things from the academic version to the general version, a black belt and speaking black belt, IELTS taker. And let me ask you some things now, because some people don't really understand or see how preparation or proper preparation can help, right? So do you think people should look for help right in the beginning, or they should, okay, let's see what I can do alone first, and then I will look for help if I need?
Okay, so first of all, the test is an expensive test.
Hmm.
So in Brazil, it was 800 reais. And here in
Hmm.
Canada, it is $320.
Hmm.
So it is a lot of money.
That's true.
And so considering that, I would say people have to look for help because I don't think the classes, the price of
Price.
the classes are more than a second test.
Hmm.
So see,
That's true.
I actually I actually had to pay for
Considerable
5
amount of money.
tests.
Hmm.
I had to pay for
That's true.
5 tests
Hmm.
because on
That's
my
true.
first one, because before taking my first test, I didn't want to spend money with that
Hmm.
because I thought I would be able to prepare by myself.
Hmm.
I
And
thought my English skills were enough to
mhm.
get the score that I needed.
So definitely we can see how not looking for help or for classes or for preparation or proper preparation would be not only time wasting but also money
Money
wasting,
wasting.
right?
And you know what? I think what happened to me was that I had that feeling before
Hmm.
taking my first test.
Hmm.
My English is better now. I'm gonna get this score. I actually got.
Hmm.
So when I saw my problem was another thing, I thought I was prepared. So I was ignoring that.
Hmm.
You know, I was just ignoring that. Okay, that is not a problem for me anymore.
Yes,
My
you
English
kind
is
of
not like that.
assume, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
assuming that you
yeah.
don't need that anymore.
And then I was taking the test again and again,
Mhm.
but because I was desperate, I was getting worse.
Another thing I want to ask you is that this really intrigues me is what is clear for you today as an IELTS speaking black belt that might not be that clear for white belts. And when I say white belts, I would say people taking the IELTS for the first time. What would be clear for you today that might not be clear for them?
So again, I would say that IELTS is not about English.
Mhm.
It's not just about English. Uh, there is a structure about the test. There are some requirements that
Mhm.
the examiners are waiting, are
True.
expecting from you.
Some techniques you should
Some,
apply.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So with
it.
the right techniques, you
Mhm.
can fulfill.
The
Can I say that?
expectations.
Fulfill the
Mhm. I was thinking about
expectation.
that word.
Hmm.
Fulfill the
The
expectation.
expectations of the examiner. So that way you're gonna get a good score
Mhm.
because you're not just there speaking English.
You
You
have
are
to
using
use
the
English.
techniques, the tools. I don't
Mhm.
know if I can call it tools, but um, yeah. So you are using the structure. You are doing what they want. So it's
That's
not just about knowing which kind of questions they do. It's not just about knowing
yes,
first part,
that's
they're
true.
gonna ask you about some personal questions.
Mhm.
Second part, they're gonna give you a card. You gonna have to speak
Mhm.
about. This is just know about the structure of the test, but
Mhm.
not about what they
How
are.
to answer.
Yeah, how to answer that because there is a right way. Um, Now I would say that there is a right way of answering those
Mhm.
questions.
That is quite true because the questions you can look for them on the internet. You will see a plethora of questions, a plethora of people taking mock tests, but those are just the questions. And there is a difference between answering and knowing how to answer
Yeah,
the questions, right?
yeah, and that's the specific part that having someone guiding you is different from just looking for some content on the internet.
Mhm. Yes. And what would you, what would be, in your opinion, for people watching and listening to us, mostly the white bears, people who have never taken the outside. So there's this terminology, there's names I give them. It's like a comparison between the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a martial art that you need to know the techniques, the right techniques to apply on the IELTS test. So what would be, in your opinion, the worst mistake people make when preparing for the IELTS? Mostly when they're preparing alone.
Mm, so I think I'm being repetitive about my answers, but again, it is so important to understand that the IELTS is not just about English. I don't know what else to say.
And this is true because it's just reinforced the importance
Yeah.
of understanding this, right?
So having someone listening to your answer, to your the way you were
Mhm,
taking the test, let's say,
mhm.
because
Mhm.
during our practices, we weren't doing that. We
That's
were
true.
simulating the
Mhm,
test
mhm.
environment, the test questions,
Yes.
and I was showing you the way
Mhm.
I was answering them.
That's true.
And most of the time, I was doing it in a wrong way.
Mhm. I'd say that that is because it's not that you didn't know English, because you clearly did at that time. But the thing is to know how to use your English in the right way for the IELTS test, right? That's
Yeah,
the thing.
Yeah, even simple things. For example, let's say the examiner asks some question that you were not prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of staying there, um, um, like doing it,
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
did that,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and now I noticed that I was
Mhm.
just doing that to take some time to think about what I was going to answer.
There are some techniques that
Yeah,
you
there
can
are some
apply
techniques you
for
can
that.
apply for that
Mhm.
situation, even when you're not
That's you.
prepared for the question.
Mhm.
So that's, I would say, that is the main difference between having someone helping you and studying by yourself. But at least practice one, two, or three times
Mhm.
with a teacher, having some feedback on how to improve that
That's true. Mhm.
is essential.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Okay, we have come to at least the end of my topics for this interview, but I have also posted some days ago a box on Instagram so people could ask or pose some question that I would make for you here. Of course, I have filtered them because there were lots of questions that were inserted in what I said and in what we talked about. When I said I'm going to interview one of my black belts and about how she managed to do that, one I've got here for you is someone asked if you remember in this last test, the one you got your CLB 10 in speaking, what was the topic of your test? Do you remember the topic of your speaking test?
Um, on the first part of the test, she
Mhm,
was asking about my personal life,
mhm,
but in a different way. She just asked where I was living, if I
mhm,
had plans to move somewhere else, and why. That is something really interesting about the test as well. Even if sometimes she doesn't ask why, it's good if we give some reason
mhm,
for our
mhm,
answers.
that's true.
But at that time, she asked why. She asked what I like, what I liked about the city that I was living at that time, and something that I didn't like,
Mhm.
and why. If I prefer coffee or tea.
That is quite a question that is coming back these days. Lots of students have reported that one.
Really?
Mhm,
Uh, then she asked if I how often I was wearing jeans
oh.
and why jeans became so popular,
Mhm.
something like that.
How about the second part?
On the second part, so the
Mhm,
second the second part was about some event that I went.
mhm,
No, I'm lying. The second part was about something that happened that I celebrated
mhm,
somehow.
mhm,
So I was talking about. I told her I got a new job, that I got a promotion at my
mhm,
job, and I talk about it, like, what did I do? So what did I do to celebrate that? Something like that.
good. And the third part, I'm assuming, was something related to
Something
that.
related to that. It was about celebrations in my country.
Mhm,
The difference between celebration of birthday of old people and young people. And she asked me if I thought that the government should financially support some events.
mhm,
Why? So every time I had to give my answer and explain why.
mhm,
Why?
mhm,
If I didn't give her the answer, or sometimes as we practiced, I was giving the reason, like,
mhm.
oh, I don't agree with that because then when I was starting to say because, she was why? She
Oh.
was already there. Yeah,
You
she was
say,
already there.
don't you say I'm giving the reason already?
Yeah, like I was already giving her the reason.
Mhm, mhm,
It was basically that. So personal preferences, celebrations, and then the third part is usually somehow related to the second
yes,
part. I
yes,
noticed
yes.
that.
Mhm.
Um,
They link and go further. Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
the
the
case.
next What?
That's the definition.
The next question they made was, what have you done to achieve CLB 10? Well, we talked about that, right? But
Yeah.
were you expecting it? Were you expecting to get the CLB 10, or it happened more as if consequences of your training to be um, IELTS fighter?
Yeah, that's actually a battle, right? Especially for me that I took the test so many times. So I wasn't expecting CLB 10, but when I left the room of the test, I was sure. I was sure
Mhm.
that I got at least the score that I needed.
Mhm.
And that was the first time that I left the room with that feeling.
Oh, you were that confident.
Yeah, I was confident that time
Mhm.
because I was able to apply everything we were talking about, everything we were preparing
Every
for.
technique we've
Every,
seen.
I wouldn't say every, but some of them. Like it was totally different from what I was doing
Right.
before. It was. I have to say that.
All right. So we had other questions here, but those questions that I make, we ended up talking about them during the conversation. So I will not ask you anything else to say. I just want to thank you once more.
Can
Ask.
I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Go on. Go on.
So I would like to ask, what is the difference that you notice on our first class from our last class, let's say, or at least after some time of preparation?
From the first class
Yeah,
to the last one.
because I'm pretty sure my first class was a disaster. I remember,
Well,
I
it was
remember.
a disaster. I wouldn't say that, but what I could clearly see during your development and your improvement was the augmentation of your skills to apply the right techniques, proficiency in the art and in the techniques that needed to be applied in the IELTS. That's the thing. You came to me speaking a good level of English already. That was clear. But you just didn't know how to use your level of English with the right techniques, applying the right techniques during the test. So that would be the major influence I can see you. Because then at the last class, I could say, okay, now my spirit is light because I know she's going to take the test with all the skills she needs. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, and I feel the same. Like I feel exact the same thing.
Yes, and this
I
is good.
remember. Yeah.
This is good because not only about the not only because of the IELTS test, but because what we learn during the classes and so on is something that you can apply in your life, right? You start to be, you start being more focused and start giving more precise answers when you need and things like that. You have a more broad ability to analyze things, right? That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I have to say that even on the other bands of the test, I got the best score of
Mm,
all other tests except writing, because writing is
writing is
uh,
right, right?
writing is writing.
Yes,
And I would recommend some teacher for writing as well, because writing and speaking, they are
yes, yes. You should
I
definitely
think they
look.
are the
Mm,
worst part of the test. That they really have some secret about it.
that's true. That's true. Okay, would you like to say something else to people, to the people watching us and listening to us?
Uh, yeah, so I would say that having a teacher, having someone uh, giving me feedback and evaluating me before the test made a huge difference in my performance, in my score. So You don't know how deeply I regret not having the classes before, not having asked for help, because I
Mhm.
just thought I would be able to do it by myself.
Okay,
So,
that's a
so I
mistake.
would say that, like, you might think that before taking the test, you're gonna spend some money. I don't need to spend money on that.
Mhm.
But after 5 tests, I
You
can
should
tell you
definitely consider.
it is worth it to have someone supporting you.
Okay, let me say to you again, this was a very, very pleasant time for me to meet you again and have the chance to talk about your performance throughout the IELTS. It was very, very nice to see you again. And I wish you the best you can have in this life. All
Thank
right?
you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And for those of you watching us, I will leave her profile in the description of the video and also in the description of the podcast episode. This is time for us to go now. And I see you in the next videos. Cheers.
Cheers.